If you were to describe yourselves to a stranger without any humbleness or any kind of vanity, are you smarter? Are you luckier? Do you work harder than the average person? What would you put that success down to if you had to put it down to one thing? Timing?
I think, there's a certain amount of, timing and luck and place and, a lot of that I think affects all of us in many parts of our lives. But there's a real tenacity and competitiveness that, I don't know, was instilled in me by my parents. They were competitive people, but in a nice way. Like, they played nice. They were feisty competitors at anything they did. When I think about everything I do everything that way. Like, I don't have an ability to kind of just play any game for fun. It's like I want to play it for real. And I think that's that's one of the characteristics for me that was really, really important during a lot of the times when, you have a lot of low times. It's not all about success. Every single day is not roses, and you're constantly faced with difficult challenges, whether they're marketplace challenges, people challenges, major production problems, etc. And all of those things taken together, you have to find a way through them. And I think that tenacity is a critical part of that for me. And then, what you've built around yourself is how you're going to go solve those, or how you're going to, work your way through. So I think if I were giving counsel to younger people today, I'd be saying, or anybody in a leadership position or seeking to be in a leadership position, is that, that tenacity, it's not just enough to be tenacious and want to go fight some more. You have to be able to go through the process of, what are we fighting for? Why are we fighting? How are we going to do it? And planning it. And maybe it's the warrior mentality a little bit, but there's certainly something to be said for that, because you confront those all the time in business, and certainly and at times in your personal life.
But I would argue that this is not Conan the Barbarian. This is Conan the Great Guy, fully capable of competing, but you've always had a bigger picture when you were looking at things. And I saw you in business. I've seen you in philanthropy. I've seen you in family. So we don't have to be a warrior at the exclusion of being a good guy. And that's one of the things that I'm not drawn to people who are warriors at the expense of winning every. And again, I'm not making fun of the winning, but there's guys who nickel and dime for the sake of nickel and diming.
But that's where our bond comes from.
Exactly.
That's a big part of our bond. Brett has felt this way. I've always felt this way, that you can have all kinds of success. You can win in your business, or win at whatever. But I'm not trying to win by stepping all over people, like the what I described earlier about winning with your customer, your employee, your shareholders. I mean, that's really what you want. You want to be in a winning environment with people that you love being with and you love sharing it with. And one of the most powerful revelations I had after I'd sold my business was the absolute joy I had transforming other people's lives just by bringing them along on the opportunity. Not because I had the good fortune to just be able to hand something. They earned it. Like they earned it and worked it, and they were absolutely entitled to what they built and they were part of. And that was incredibly rewarding to do that. And it's something that it's probably the one thing I miss more than anything about not being in an operating capacity, and why I'm doing all the other things I'm doing to fulfill that need.
My world, as much as the world of an entrepreneur is often perceived to be an independent world, my world has evolved with a series of partnerships. And they started, in most cases, with friendships that I built to start with in student politics. Murray Edwards and I were student leaders at the University of Saskatchewan. Ultimately, he and I, along with Jim Davidson, Rick Grafton, started First Energy and built something pretty significant. But it started with a friendship. John Wright and I became friends when he was a mid-level manager. He's now one of the most respected CEOs in the country. Bruce Chernoff, not well known, but certainly one of the most successful businessmen in the country. I took him whitewater rafting in Ecuador, where we became very close friends after a life-challenging moment on a river. But again, friendship started. I don't describe myself as a particularly good employee, but I'm a pretty good partner. And so I like working with people, and that's been probably a trademark of my own successes as I look back at the series of partnerships that I developed, and including my ex-wife, an amazing mother. We weren't great partners as it evolved over 20 years, but I'm pretty proud of 3 kids that we managed to bring into this world.
One of the things you sought that not a lot of people seek out is coaching, and that's hard to understand for a lot of people that don't understand coaching or why coaching is important. What caused you to do that, and did it make a difference in your careers and in your evolution as people, businessmen and fathers and brothers?
Yeah. I would say in my case, what drove me to coaching was that I wanted a deeper dive on what was right and what was wrong, or where there were opportunities in my life, but also I wanted somebody. I didn't want to feel uncomfortable having somebody hold the mirror up and walk around me and really show me what's right and what's wrong, and be able to look very introspectively into my life and give me insights that are very hard to gain, even with the most trusted friends, because of the sensitivities, as well as a level of accountability and thinking about your life in a framework. Back when we started doing the things we were doing, your framework was just your gut, and it was just you running and going and doing your things, and then all of a sudden people say, well, Brett's just like this. And you go, I guess that's who I am. John's just like that. And as you get older, you do want to be able to tap that old John, but I also want to tap a new John, and I don't ever think that the John project's done. So that's really where where I come from on it.
How about you, Brett?
I stumbled into the world of coaching when we were trying to build team at First Energy, and we'd bring people in to help us keep that team evolved, because I can tell you there was days where our partnership couldn't agree on what time of day it was. Even though that was a factual matter, we would argue about that. So bringing everyone together and creating a sense of team was powerful. And I would describe my family relationships as pre-Keith and after Keith. And it was because he held the mirror up that you talk about and said, well, here's what you're saying, but here's what you're doing. Here's what your daughter wants, and here's what you're offering. And these are all his perceptions, but it was that sober judge of, I'll call it reality, that allowed me to look more introspectively at what I was doing. And if I really wanted a better relationship, then why don't all my actions line up around that, which is really about holding me accountable for being better at what I want to do. And the whole world of, as I call it, simplify, organize, harvest, and distribute evolved from someone challenging me, going, do you want to keep on this treadmill? You're doing a good job. It's getting steeper, you're going faster, but is that what you really want in life? For some people, there's a bit of shame. I've worked with a psychologist to challenge me in some of my thinking, and I cycled through depression near the end of my marriage, and it wasn't good, and it was undiagnosed, it was untreated, and it wasn't talked about. Why? Because you don't talk about things like that. And that's the shame of mental health issues. But it's the shame of people just saying, look, I don't need help. Well, the reality is we can all be better. And that's really how I found the world of coaching has been a game changer for me.
For people out there that are trying to learn the lessons early that you've now learned, is that a great strategy towards simplification then, is coaching?
Well, I think there's 2 elements of that we could talk about here. One is belonging to organizations of like-minded people. And there's tech, there's EO, there's YPO, there's CEO. There's a number of organizations that bring together people with common interests. There's Toastmasters. There's lots of things that you can do to bring yourself together, again, around people. But even inside Forum in YPO, where you get to a very intimate and friendship level-based relationship, there's something powerful about the one-on-one, where you can take it to another level. You abandon the mask and just open up. And I will acknowledge more than once, tears being how we started a meeting or maybe ended a meeting in terms of my coach, because it was very emotional. He was challenging me on things that hurt to talk about and hurt to deal with. But I can tell you I'm better off having dealt with them.
Yeah, so, I mean, thinking about, is coaching something that can simplify your life? Well, to get to the point where you are seeking a coach, you've already got a life that's probably not that simple. And I would argue that, just to get clarity on, whether it's principles, values, objectives, goals, etc. That's incredibly helpful. And so I can't see how it doesn't act as a simplifying force of sorts. But you'll never get to, the goal is not to get to a simple life. Like you're just not going to likely land there. So
I can't imagine a coach ever saying, you got to speed it up.
Yeah.
You got to spin a little harder. You've got to spread yourself a little thinner.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of business partners and peers who all want to do exactly that. And that's where maybe the coaching gives you, again, as I described it, that sober second thought over what is it you're really trying to accomplish.
Yeah. It's a little backbone to speak up for you when sometimes you don't do that when you really should.
Can people learn from you and simplify from the beginning? I've always believed you have to learn sometimes about who you're not to learn who you are. But
I'm not convinced that simplicity is a goal. If your definition of success is material things, then you'll complicate your life chasing material things. If your definition of success is driven more by, call it happiness, whether it's inner or outer, however you describe it, then you're more likely to look at things that are important to you long term. And I saw an article in the paper today saying, why not spend your wealth on experiences rather than things? I'm turning 60 in 3 years, and I've looked at my life in sort of 3 brackets. The first 30 was building up to the point where I could have a career. The next 30 has been a phenomenal career, roller coaster, highs, lows, all those things. But I'd really like the last 30 to be about giving back to the world, and in particular, first, my family.
have you made your greatest contributions, do you think, or are they yet to come?
Well, that's a big question.